Hey guys, Griffin here, coming at you with a new video, the first in quite some time actually. This time I'm going to be showcasing some of the stuff I've been working on since the release of my endurance map back in March, so wow, 9 months ago, quite a while. As you'll know, in my last video I mentioned that I would be walking away from the RPGX mapping scene and whatnot, and that my focus was most likely going to be in shifting to creating projects in the Unity or Unreal Engine. So for the past 9 months, although I did have a break of about 2 months here and there, I've been playing around with Unity first. Now learning a new engine is quite a slow process, so I've dedicated probably the next 2 years to just figuring out how a lot of the functionality works within Unity. This learning curve normally involves just making a lot of little incomplete games that will never see the light of day. So I thought I would showcase some of these so you can see what I've been up to. So the first project I started fooling around with was Griffin Lab. I showcased that in one of my previous RPGX videos. It was my first attempt at an FPS RPG style game, almost like an RPGX clone, just to see how some things work. Looking back on it now, some 12 months later, it's a total state, and I already know 101 things that I can do essentially to improve it. I wrote the code for the first-person controller myself, and after comparing it to the controller available in the standard assets, decided that that was the better way to go. And it had some raycasting that allowed me to have some buttons to push and some automatic doors, so not bad for a first go. Next I started fooling around a little bit with character and object animation, so I started working on a small classic style kind of Resident Evil project. Again, this was a project that I worked on before March. This was also the first time I realised just how different lighting and texturing was in Unity compared to my old sort of RPGX days. I played around with trigger volumes for changing camera angles and also had text appear when you searched areas, and it was really my first venture into some HUD elements. I also learned some valuable lessons that, although I know how to import environments from Radiant, which I use for RPGX mapping, you have to break these environments up into chunks, otherwise reflections, specular, normal mapping, stuff like that don't work too well. Overall I like it, but find that the materials and environment could do with a lot more. Turns out I now know some lighting settings that would drastically improve the lighting in this game. Okay, when working on something, it's always a good idea to have an end target in mind. The last project, 1X, and this one, EXP1701, have the beginning of a game design document, so tons of text on what they're meant to be, story elements, gameplay features, technical limitations, and target platforms. So if I wanted to, say someday, turn it into a commercial project, then I could. So this project was designed to focus on my strengths. I'm good at spaceships, so I'm good at platforms with hardware limitations and making stuff look good, like on a 20-year-old engine. So why not target a platform that isn't as advanced as, say, PC or console? I decided on a space shooter for Android platform, and which better shooter to base it on than 2002's Freelancer. In this game I used a combination of original Freelancer assets and my own texturing, and tried to recreate a lot of the functionality of Freelancer just on a mobile platform. This project has AI ships that fly around in circles using auto-navigation, and the player ship comes with auto-navigation as well. There are working trade lanes, some more menu systems including tapping on physical objects in the world to target them. And I also explored different lighting layers, so like shadows and visual effects for the trade lanes, and created something that wasn't too far from the original Freelancer game. On top of that, I also decided to spend some time working on a navigational node system. Now, pathfinding is one of the hardest things to do in game design, and there are a lot of algorithms out there that can be used for it. I decided to write my own after seeing an article that said, don't bother trying to write your own pathfinding algorithms when you have A star or this. Just use that. Challenge accepted. I can't code particularly well, but I do understand game logic. Playing around with my own algorithm allowed me to understand what is going on behind the scenes, and it would work for all but 2 of the freelancer systems. I always found a route, but in 2 cases it didn't find the quickest route. I also realised how bad my coding is. I get game logic, but I don't get a lot of the mathematical side of things and a lot of the syntax and whatnot. As a result, my code is almost always a string of if, then, while statements that are laid out for every particular combination of things that could be going on. I'm a very visual developer. I like environments and menu designs and stuff, you can see. When it comes down to code, I don't care how neat and efficient it is, just as long as it works. If I end up taking on a commercial indie project in the future, I'll probably end up having to hire a programmer just to tidy up my crappy code. Anyway, my hope was to start creating my own visual design with this game in the future, making it into almost like a Freelancer 2 of my own design, but I struggled a lot with the asset culling. When you have planets that need to be visible across the map and lit so the star is in the middle of the system, and you have to light small ships and station that disappear when you're a certain distance away but cast shadows, it gets really complicated. I also need to learn how to make stuff disappear and not be rendered, but without using the game's inbuilt culling. As, you know, in space there's no real break of line of sight, and some objects like ships disappear quickly, stations disappear a little later, and planets never disappear. Altogether, learned quite a bit from this project. Okay, I have a bit of an obsession with abandoned places as a setting. Shipwrecks, abandoned cities, buildings, or just rundown places hold a special place in my heart. You know, they're just so damn awesome. After all that boring programming in EXP1701, I decided to get visual for a while. So for the next set of small projects, I wanted to look at creating some environments and working on my workflow with visual elements. I started with a little swimming pool using some borrowed textures and started playing around with it, implemented a flashlight and learned a bit more about dynamic and real-time lighting. I remember looking up a few Urbex videos on YouTube and finding this small hospital in Florida that I intended to recreate, so I downloaded hundreds of images of it and videos of people exploring it, and I started to map out the entire inside of the hospital using whatever footage I could find. I still have no idea what I wanted to achieve with that. I think I got a little sidetracked. This was about the same time I got Jurassic World Evolution, which I was playing quite a bit, and remember back to The Lost World, the second Jurassic Park movie, with the abandoned like worker village and how cool that was. And that was probably what sparked my obsession with abandoned locations back when I was a kid. Now, the operations building there is an interesting building to recreate because it has a blend of straight lines and more sort of organic architecture integrated together, which means I couldn't use Radiant to make it. So I decided to start using modeling programs to try and model the building. This is where workflow comes into it. It takes so long to make a building in a modeling program compared to Radiant. In the same time it took me to make some of the operations building, I was also able to make a large part of an abandoned warehouse with offices and bathrooms using borrowed textures. I never placed this into an environment or anything like that like I did with the operations building, but still, it seems if I can make it in Radiant then I should do to save time. Really, these little projects were just a test of workflow, making something as quickly as possible while at the same time playing around with making textures look a bit wet for the operations center. I've played around with these before, but still don't quite have the hang of it. Let's start with VR. I wanted to see if I could get a simple VR app to run on an Android device, as I haven't invested in a VR headset, and that's basically all I had, my phone. So I created a little cabin with some previously used assets and tried walking around using a Google Cardboard headset for my phone. And the way the character moves and looks around has changed a hell of a lot from conventional first-person characters, so that was a bit of a challenge. I must say that I've been enjoying it. This little cabin, however, has suffered from a bit of an old problem of me importing it in as a single object as opposed to breaking it up into rooms. So I'll have to redo that part. Now this is actually my current project where I'm trying to play around with the graphics on Android devices and see what I could do with VR. I decided to create a new series of assets that would be more detailed than I used to do, but not kind of over detailed. In the past I've always been able to make things look good in like RPGX using textures alone, but I'm having difficulty making things look good in Unity using only textures. Most of the time, if I wanted a panelled wall to look good, I have to physically make all the panels on the wall. I thought that with access to normal and displacement maps, I would be able to make it look more 3D as a surface, but as of yet can't seem to get it working how I want it to. Perhaps I'll take a look at legacy shaders instead of using newer sort of PBR-based shaders, which could give me more control over how objects look, but I think a lot of it is more to do with lighting than texturing. Now, instead of making one texture for a surface, I now have to make about 6, and I still need to figure out what those textures are actually doing and how to make them exactly how I want them to look. I was actually working on this project before my current one, but this project is going to have to be completed to a certain degree. If you remember my old RPGX videos, you know that I've always had a part-out universe approach to the way I presented my videos. There's me, Griffin Endurance, the guy making the map. Then there was my character in the game that messed about and did awkward commissioning ceremonies. I like to immerse myself in what I'm working on, so this is a style that I would like to keep on my channel in the future. Griff Hub will be a stage, essentially, like a talk show set that will be used to keep that first person perspective and allow me to present videos in the future from a more interactive setting as opposed to like this video, talking while showing a desktop or clips of stuff. We know I've moved on to Unity, but what has my character done after walking away at the end of my last video? Now I'm in debate as to whether or not to show you what I have so far, as it could spoil it in the future. Maybe a sneak peek? No, I shouldn't. No. Fine, let's have a quick look. Okay, I really shouldn't be showing this off. So this is Griff Hub. This is a first-person thingy, although you can't see much here. Yeah. It's a first-person setup, very similar to RPGX, but with my own kind of interior, based in a hollowed-out asteroid. Let's have a look around. I really shouldn't be showing this off, it ain't finished yet. So this is my little utility area. My little Griff Hub consoles and stuff, servers. Every single one of these little cables had to be manually modelled and put in. That was a pain in the backside. And some batteries. These have little battery banks in them. And we come out here, and there's our view. Our little planet and our asteroid. And yeah, this is the bulk of the hub. It's getting there. It's not brilliant. That everyone should remember. The Kronos. That'll come into it. The old Griff Hub symbol. Little sitting area. It looks alright so far. It's not brilliant. It's not brilliant. I'm still learning. But it doesn't look too bad. We've got the oxygen systems. Every single one of these little pipes has had to be manually put in with that specific spacing. It's an absolute... This room took 2 months so far. About 2 months. And it's nowhere near finished yet. So, yeah, we've got a long way to go yet. And up here we have our screens, which I can play videos on, including past videos, which would be cool. Especially if I have computer systems set up, so I can actually toggle things on and off. That'd be pretty cool. And a little holographic display probably in the middle. I like my holographic displays. I always seem to have them. That's my last video. This was going to be like a little bedroom area with a desk and some stuff, but I think this is going to be a conference area. And I think I'm going to have my office and quarters down this bit here, which is currently just dark. And then that's eventually going to be textured as a water tank. And we've got some corridors forming down here. Very basic at the moment, no texturing or anything done on them, but I don't like the camera bobbing at the moment, that's got to be worked on. But I do have crouch, prone, and movement, and sprint, and jumping. So I've got all the basic controls that I need, although running isn't brilliant. So yeah, that is the beginning of GriffHub. All the little material, the little canvas thing I ended up putting in because I thought it would get rid of the ugly rock. My rock is not very good. I'm not very good at making rocks. I think it looks kind of lame, but it's my first time. It's my first day. We've got the vents there, everything coming out, all the dust settling. I like this room. Little vent. All these, I've got to put some more of these in, tie all the servers up to them. I want it to look like it's functional and that it's kind of been like bashed together, because I am going to have a scene when I do launch GriffHub as like a center for my videos kind of thing. I'm going to have a scene where, as I said before, part in, part out, my character quote unquote arrives, and you can guess what my character would arrive in. Yeah, the only thing in here from old days, which will stay there below the GriffHub sign for many days to come. Although I may refit it, I may change it, because I may use it to get around from A to B. So that's pretty cool. Looks alright. It's a start. There's a sneak peek. So at the moment there's a lot of jumping from incomplete project to project. That's going to kind of be the norm for probably the next year and a half, as essentially I get my bearings. Next year I want to work on world menus, probably in GriffHub, so I can actually use control panels with responsive screens to showcase stuff. And I need to play around with the main menus as well, you know, trying to make main menus, inventory menus, stuff like that. I also want to make a couple of custom characters and fool around with animations, so that's something else to look into. Anyway, that's what I've been up to over the past 9 months. Yeah, hopefully I'll have more of an idea as to what shape this channel's going to take in the future, and my website's still down at the moment, so I've got to do that at all. But yeah, if you guys have any ideas of like little things you'd like to see, I mean, not tutorials, I'm learning Unity, I can't do Unity tutorials. But if there's any kind of things you'd like to see me make or see me go back and look at or anything like that, yeah, drop a hint, you know, drop a comment. It might push me in the direction of something else I want to work on and something else I want to learn to do with Unity. So anyway, thanks for watching guys, have fun.